Great. Thank you for the introduction. Thanks for having me. As I was just browsing the darknet this morning, I saw a very disturbing thing. So the B-Sides Galway organization was hacked by the infamous Lockbit ransomware gang, and they're holding our data hostage, and they are trying to extort money from us. And the time is ticking, as you can see. $250,000 US is the price they want for not releasing all B-Sides Galway data to the public. So, but let's, before we dive in, let's dial back a little bit. I hope I'm not repeating myself too much on what Rob already said to you about ransomware, but let's give a quick quick overview over the history. I remember the good old days when all the researchers, the security researchers, were really hunting for each little piece of malware because they were so eager to try to dismantle and understand it and learn from it. But today, the situation has kind of shifted. So the hunter has become the prey. The malware is evolving, is getting dangerous and more and more dangerous every day, every minute. And now we as the security researchers have become the prey. I don't know who remembers this one. This was one of the first prominent examples of malware, the I Love You virus, which was actually, it was a pretty interesting thing. It didn't really do much harm besides sending itself to everybody in your Outlook address book. So it spread around the world pretty quickly. A little bit earlier, before that, in 1989, this was actually the first ransomware, not kind of ransomware as we know it, the so-called AIDS virus, which was actually shipped via post on a 5.25-inch floppy disk. It disguised itself as a research software for the AIDS virus, and it did actually ship to a lot of biology labs, which would open up the software and install it on a computer. And after a few uses, the computer would lock down and asking for a license fee to the company. And it's actually a little bit described in the small notes that came with the floppy drive. But the first really big appearance of ransomware was in 2017 with the WannaCry ransomware. That got a lot of public attention because that red box you could see on many big signage displays, on airports, on train stations, on your local ATMs, that really spread around the world. And it's, as Rob said earlier, that was like this end user, end customer game with like a very small $300 fee for unlocking the files. So yeah, that was that. What I found most interesting about that one was the history of the vulnerability. Actually, that the vulnerability that was used in that to infect all the machines was the Eternal Blue vulnerability that was in possession of the NSA, and some hackers broke into the NSA, installed it, and sold it off, or tried to auction it off with many other vulnerabilities in the darknet. At some point, Microsoft patched the vulnerability. The hacker group, they were called shadow brokers. They did actually release Eternal Blue, this one specific vulnerability, to the public to say, yeah, we have a really good set of vulnerabilities stolen from the NSA, and it's really worth to pay for it, so you can use it. And, 2 months after Microsoft released the patch, the worldwide breakout of WannaCry happened. So basically, you could have installed a patch for 2 months and maybe prevented this. But not anymore today. Moving forward a little bit to 2023. This is actually also a ransomware case, even though it was not, the data was not encrypted, it was just stolen, and the people were just extorted for the publication of the data. It was on the so-called MoveIt platform. It's a data exchange service, data exchange appliance many big customers had in their networks. And the patch came out on the 31st of May. And after some investigation, it came out that already 4 days before that patch came out, you could see the first exploit attempts in the wild. So basically patching did not save anybody here. We were all, last year, me and my colleagues, we were discussing are we going to see more of cloud usage by ransomware, and it actually got some big news coverage in January of this year. Before, ransomware gangs targeting corporations were usually encrypting and locking all the on-prem infrastructure, but now they're also moving on to cloud services, AWS, and encrypting your S3 buckets. Quick show of hands, who has S3 buckets? Who has a backup of their S3 buckets? Good. How it's going. This is the part where I'm probably gonna do some repeats, so I'm gonna skip a little bit over some things. Actually, ransomware nowadays is kind of a quadruple extortion scheme. What we've seen the first extortion mechanism is the encryption, so they lock up all your data, you can't work anymore. But companies have learned to have backups and restore from their backups, which is why the ransomware gangs had to kind of adopt, because they saw the ransom payments going down because the companies were able to recover with certain hardships, but they were able to recover. So they introduced a second scheme where they could extort people, is the exfiltration of the data, which is now what they're doing, what you're always seeing, the leaking sites. They steal your data and they try to extort money from you so that they won't release the data to the public. The third extortion scheme, which I have only seen as a threat, not actually in real life, is they're trying to DDoS you while you're trying to recover from the ransomware attack, while you're trying to build back up your infrastructure. They try to disrupt you with DDoS attacks. Luckily, I haven't seen that yet. But the fourth one is they're actually trying to communicate with your customers and with other stakeholders, with law enforcement, with your competitors, and make your life hard and maybe sell your data or damage your reputation. This is actually something I've really seen. One time when I was working on an incident, we were sitting with the management board in the meeting room in the evening, and one by one of the managers, the phone was ringing, and foreign phone number was calling all the managers of the board saying like, yeah, we hacked you. We want to talk. You haven't reached out to us. Please do. Ransomware is a business model. We've seen that before. I'm not going to go too deep on that. Ransomware as a service, you have your ransomware operators, the big groups on top, they take a cut of 20 or 30%. Most of the money stays with the affiliates and they do the legwork on the ground. Funny thing is about that, we've actually already seen that automized. So if you look at the blockchain, you can see ransom payments that reach a certain wallet, which are automatically distributed in the 30-70 or something split between the ransomware gang and the actual affiliate. So smooth business model. This is kind of a statistic about the about the median payment sizes. So all the most ransomware gangs are on there. You can see how frequent their ransomware payments are to them and how big in the mean. So you have like the really big players up here with big payments, but also you have like small fish with very infrequent but smaller payments. It always depends on who gets hacked, what infrastructure gets hacked, and who is the affiliate. How do they recruit affiliates? It's not just the initial access brokers that already have access to the networks. They also advertise on darknet forums. This is an example from Avos Locker, and they write articles about what can you get when you work with Avos Lockers. You get support for Windows, Linux, ESXi, so that's most platforms. You get assistance in negotiations. When you've hacked someone, they will help you with negotiating the ransomware payment. You get very configurable builds. You can adapt it to every situation. And you also get data storage, DDoS attacks, and the aforementioned calling services. So you don't really need to bring much on your own besides a target. Sometimes it's also very prominent if a company gets hacked. So this is taken from a wallpaper that was left after a company was hacked, saying, "Oh, we stole all your files and encrypted everything, blah blah blah." How do you feel about earning $1 million? You can work with us, hack some more companies, give us access to the networks, and we'll share the profit with you. So that is the first thing IT guys see when they open up their computer in the morning, like, oh, my company is hacked and they want to recruit me. Sometimes these ransomware gangs also have rules, kind of ethical rules, or how you want to work with them. Lockbit is as one of the biggest. They really want you to prove that you're worthy of working with them. They want you to deposit 1 Bitcoin in their wallet as kind of a down payment for their 20% share. And that's also kind of to weed out journalists or law enforcement to stop them from entering the system. You have to write an application where you include certain profiles you have on hacker forums to prove that you're legit. You have to show some proof that you already have access to other networks, that you can really start working right away. And you also have to state, and this is very interesting to me, state if you work with other ransomware gangs, not because they don't allow it. It's not kind of exclusivity, but because they want to be better, they want to improve. So you have to report, I'm working also with ransomware gang X because feature X is better over there, and then they can implement it and get better. They do have, as I said, some ethical guidelines. So they say, oh, you're not allowed to use our tool to attack hospitals, except when it's a private plastic surgery. You're not allowed to attack schools, except when it's major universities. As long as it's making money, it has to care for their IT security. You're not allowed to attack critical infrastructure, or at least you're not allowed to encrypt critical infrastructure. You are allowed to attack and exfiltrate with critical infrastructure. And if you're unsure if it's critical infrastructure, you can just go and ask your help desk. They have a help desk to figure out, is this critical infrastructure? Am I allowed to encrypt that? You're also not allowed to attack any post-Soviet countries because that's where all of them come from. But now they live in the Netherlands. I don't know. And they really hold up to those rules. So this is an example of a children's hospital that was hacked and encrypted by a random affiliate. And after some discussions and complaints, the operators behind Lockbit said like, oh, we apologize. Sorry, this is against the rules. Here's the decryptor for your data for free. And we threw out this affiliate. The market of ransomware is actually so big. Maybe some of you know this kind of figure, a Gartner quadrant about vision and ability and performance in your market, and they're kind of ranking the ransomware gangs by their effectiveness and completeness of vision. And that's by far not all of the ransomware gangs. But now, let's move on to some war stories from real incidents. I've stitched some together to create kind of a storyline to take you through what happens if you kind of catch ransomware. First, it's always the initial compromise. There are many ways, from drive-by downloads, from leaked credentials, from stealers, from VPN tunnels. The numbers how to get initial foothold are a lot. Second thing is you have kind of a lateral movement. The attackers look around in the network. They move from one machine to the other. They move up through the Active Directory, try to get administrative credentials so they can control all the endpoints, all the servers in the network. Then you might hopefully notice that there's something going on in your network, that you have some increased traffic because they're trying to steal data, exfiltrate data, and they really look through your network shares for anything that is interesting: financial data, proprietary data, customer data, everything that is good and nice to steal and to extort you. Then, hopefully, it doesn't come to this. It's Friday evening, you're enjoying a really nice dinner with your family, and your phone rings. Your colleague calls you and tells you, "Hey, my computer looks weird. All my files have a weird extension ending. I can't open my PowerPoints. What's going on?" If you see something like this, it's too late. Your files are encrypted, everything is locked up, and you have big problems going on. You will find a ransom note saying, "Oh, we're this and that hacker gang. We hacked you. All your data is stolen. Do not call law enforcement. Do not shut down your computers. And here's a way to contact us." This can be either done sometimes via email, sometimes via Tox chat, but sometimes there's also like a onion link to the darknet. When you access the onion link to the darknet, you might be greeted with a perfectly formatted site like this, saying, "Oh, your network was compromised. The full price to decrypt is $14 million US. But wait, it's only $9 million US if you pay quickly, because we want to help you resolve that quickly. There's a little bit of discount if you pay in the first 7 days. There's even instructions on how to get the bitcoins for the payment, or the Monero if you prefer that. There's a live chat for support, and there's even a function, a trial decryption, where you can upload some files of your network so they can prove to you that they can decrypt it. But sometimes it's not as professional as that. Sometimes you open up a chat and they don't even know who you're talking to, or at least the first level support doesn't know who you're talking to, and they ask you, "Hey, please introduce your company's name," and so we can work with you. Next thing you ask for is proof that they actually have stolen data from you, and you ask them to send some data examples, and you usually get them. You get a list of files that they have stolen, and then you can evaluate how much damage this is to your company. But sometimes there's also no proof. This was also an example from the case we were working. "Good afternoon, yet we cannot provide. The person who has access to data does not contact for the reasons unknown to us, but or it already was, I think will appear in the nearest future. Can you send files for test interpretation? Did you estimate Maßstab? How to you?" Yes, what? That is exactly what we thought. This is basically, you see, it's not native English speakers. It's a lot of people. So actually, you're just chatting with a first level support engineer, and they have to wait for their backend engineer, their affiliate, to come back to give you the data. Why does this work, or why does it happen? Sometimes VX Underground 2 years ago, or I think it was 2 years ago, they asked like, "Hey Lockbit, why are you not publishing any recent victims right now?" And they said like, "Oh, we're on holiday, we're enjoying the nice summer weather, we'll be back soon." Also happened in one of my cases where it was said, "Make a decision faster, our team is going on vacation." My customer did not like that. Another funny example of first level and second level negotiations in those infrastructures, like we were talking to a first level and he didn't know what to tell us, and he asked his 7th-level engineer, "Bro, how to decrypt and how much?" Second level wrote a very nice instruction with ransom payment and a test password for decryption and stuff like that. What do you think the first level guy did? He waited 2 days, so from the 11th to the 13th of October, left the email lying around and just forwarded like, "I have reply, go on." Very unprofessional. Sometimes when you try to negotiate the prices, you always try to push them down, saying like, "Oh, we only have like $480,000 US as the maximum," but it does not work. We have your financial documents because we stole them, and we analyzed them, and we say you can afford 880. This is with our discount. If you don't pay in 3 days, it goes up again to over $1 million. So that's really crazy part about ransomware. They steal exactly the data, and they know how much you can afford. They know where your pain point for the ransom is. Sometimes you try to push the price down, but your order is very little business to us. We don't care much. Just pay or leave us alone. Sometimes it says like, "Oh, it's 0.16 Bitcoin, which is what, for 4,000, 5,000 euro. And that's where we as incident responders say like, "Yeah, okay, just pay the guy. We are more expensive than that." But just paying does not solve the problems. Just to state that, you still have to really fix how they got in. How do you do that? You usually, after you pay, you get a penetration test report. It doesn't look like much of a report, but it contains a lot of info. Yeah, there was an email containing an attachment. There was a Citrix user, Bloodhound, computers, authorization to a domain administrator. We found your backup SQLs. We used Mimicards. We found your KeyPass in your RDP servers and your antivirus servers. Please download daily updates, install Kaspersky, and change all important passwords once a month. This is what you get after you pay. A little introduction on how to be better in the end. You even get like a infrastructure listing, infrastructure database that's usually more complete than the infrastructure database you have in your own company, because they know all your infrastructure and you don't. After that, it goes on to like, "Oh, we can use sdelete. Will you accept that as a proof of deletion, that we deleted all the files that we stole from you?" And then 2 days later, you get a log file saying all the files are deleted. How to avoid all of this? I always try to think of it as in kind of 2 pillars. You always have like a preventative side, but also you have to have a reactive side, because you can't prevent 100% of IT security things. You can never have 100% IT security. So it's good to also know how to react. On the preventative side, even though I said patching will not always help you, exploits can be before the patch. Patching is still a good measure, and you should still do it in time on every critical system as soon as you can. Endpoint or infrastructure hardening. There's lots of hardening stuff for every flavor of system out there. For Windows, for Linux, you have Microsoft security baselines, you have SA Linux App Armor, you have sys hardening guidelines, you have tiering models that you can build up. Harden your infrastructure as good as you can. Especially for Windows infrastructures, I really like to work with this one tool called Pincastle. It's free for individual use, and it really gives you within like a minute or so a perfect overview over your Active Directory security with a risk level and lots of measures. If you have a Windows Active Directory and you run it, you will get work for at least 2 months to reduce your risk. Be prepared for cyber attacks, and please don't prepare like that. Pulling all the cables will not help anything if your data is encrypted. Have some contingency plans, how to lock down your network, how to lock down your data, who to inform, who to talk to, how to continue working if all your infrastructure goes down from one day to the next. And of course, backups. The ransomware gangs are looking for backups actively. They're trying to delete, destroy, encrypt your backups. Think how you, as an administrator of a network, can you, with all the privilege in your networks that are available, can you delete and destroy your backup? If so, the ransomware gang can do as well. Your backup should be off-site, offline, as far away from your infrastructure as possible. Last but not least, my kind of favorite point, it goes into both pillars, preventative and reactive visibility. Try to get a visibility into your network. Try to have a baseline. Know your network. Know your systems. Know what's going on. Because it's just the tip of the iceberg that you see, and you have to see what's below the water to be able to distinguish what's good and what's bad in your network. And with that, thank you for your attention. I don't know if we're going to do questions right now, or you can find me outside in a coffee break.